There are moments in history when a voice rises, not just to speak, but to ignite a collective heartbeat. Greta Thunberg's words have done exactly that. Yet behind the urgency of climate alarms lies a quieter, often invisible struggle, the weight on the human mind that fights for a dying planet. Today, we step inside that space where the fight for Earth and the fight for mental well-being are not two battles, but one. The intersection of planet and mind. The planet's health is a mirror. Its forests, oceans, and skies reflect not only our consumption, but also the inner landscape of our minds. When the world around us burns, floods, and chokes, something inside us fractures. Greta Thunberg's most powerful speech was not merely about levels. It was a cry that echoed both in the soil and in the psyche. Every rising tide is mirrored by rising anxiety. Every vanishing species leaves behind a piece of human. Science confirms what indigenous wisdom has whispered for centuries. Mental health and ecological health are intertwined. Psychological researchers are now documenting a surge in what they call eco-anxiety, the persistent dread of environmental collapse. Greta gave it a voice. And when she stood before the world, her trembling words were not weakness, but the tremor of an earth speaking through her. In that moment, her speech was not only data and urgency, it was a human nervous system in rebellion against apathy. It reminded us that healing the planet is not simply about technology or policies, but about healing the fractures in how we relate to life itself. Greta's voice carried both the rage of the forests and the plea of a wounded mind, asking us to see that the two cannot be separated. The weight she carries behind the camera, flashes, and viral headlines. Greta is a young woman navigating the crushing reality of climate activism. She has spoken openly about how the state of the earth impacts her mental health. For her, this is not an abstract debate. It is a daily weight, pressing on her chest as she tries to sleep. Waking her in the early hours with the sound of an imagined storm, her willingness to reveal this vulnerability is what transforms her from a figurehead into a mirror for millions. Activists across the globe share this burden, the loneliness of shouting into political halls that echo with silence. Greta's words pierced through that emptiness, not because they were rehearsed, but because they were raw. The courage to speak from that place of mental strain is a form of resistance. It disrupts the narrative that strength is only found in calm composure. Greta shows us that strength can also be found in shaking hands and quivering voices, because it means the truth is alive in the body, refusing to be numbed. Healing. The mind to heal the earth. The crisis we face is not just an environmental one. It is a crisis of perception, empathy, and connection. To heal the earth, we must also heal the internal fractures that allow us to live disconnected from its suffering. Greta's speech reminds us that deforestation is not just about trees, but about the severing of roots within ourselves. Pollution is not only a poison to rivers, but to our capacity for wonder. When we numb ourselves to the earth's pain, we numb ourselves to our own aliveness. Healing, therefore, must be both ecological and psychological, for one cannot flourish without the other. Mental resilience becomes the hidden engine of environmental action. Without it, despair turns into paralysis. With it, grief can be transformed into fuel. Greta's words teach that to keep fighting, we must first tend to the inner garden, the mental soil in which hope and endurance grow. Practices like mindfulness, community dialogue, and time spent in nature are not luxuries for activists. They are lifelines. In nurturing our minds, we preserve the emotional strength to keep marching, planting, and rebuilding, even when progress feels invisible. There is a reason Greta speaks with both urgency and care. She knows that scaring people into action can burn them out before real change arrives. Instead, she invites us to balance fierce determination with inner restoration. This is the path of sustainable activism, not a sprint of panic, but a marathon of compassion. Healing the mind does not weaken the fight, it fortifies it. A clear, calm mind can see possibilities that fear cannot. Greta's call is not only to save the planet, but to save the mental landscapes from which all change is born. Asterisk the emotional climate crisis. While we measure the Earth's temperature in degrees, there is another climate crisis unfolding within us, one of anxiety, burnout, and emotional exhaustion. Greta's voice cuts through not just the fog of political inaction, but the fog of our own overwhelm. She speaks to the silent storms inside activists, students, parents, anyone who dares to care deeply in an age of apathy. This emotional climate crisis mirrors the physical one when we ignore it. The damage spreads invisibly until collapse feels inevitable. The Earth's fever is matched by our own inner heat of stress and hopelessness. Both must be cooled if we are to survive. It is here that Greta's courage becomes contagious. She does not hide her anger, nor her fear. She transforms them into clarity. This emotional alchemy is the key to lasting resistance. To acknowledge our grief for the planet is not weakness. It is the first act of honesty. From that honesty, we can build solidarity, can stand in the streets together, not as cold soldiers of an abstract cause, but as human beings protecting the living home that mirrors our inner state. Every protest sign is also a declaration of emotional truth. I feel, I care, I refuse to go numb. And yet the temptation to shut down emotionally is strong. When the news is a constant litany of disasters, retreat feels safer than engagement. But Greta's call refuses that safety, inviting us into a harder but more rewarding path to stay present with the discomfort, to metabolize fear into focus, to turn despair into a driving force. In this way, the emotional climate crisis can be healed, one conscious act at a time. It is not just about saving coral reefs or glaciers. It is about preserving the emotional ecosystems within us that make such saving possible. Asterisk healing, as resistance healing, is not a luxury. It is a form of resistance. In a system that thrives on overwork, distraction, and emotional burnout, to care for one's mental health is a radical act. Greta's journey reminds us that the sustainability of our activism depends on the sustainability of our minds. A burnt-out activist cannot march, cannot speak, cannot dream. Rest is not withdrawal, it is preparation. Reflection is not stagnation, it is strategy. When we prioritize mental well-being, we are fortifying ourselves for the long struggle ahead. A struggle that will outlast political cycles, trending hashtags, news headlines. The link between personal healing and planetary healing is not abstract. Just as ecosystems regenerate when given time and protection, so do our minds when we allow space for restoration. Greta's example teaches us that stepping back does not mean giving up. It means returning with greater clarity and strength. This is why movements need spaces not only for rallies, but for rest, circles of trust where exhaustion can be spoken and resilience can be rebuilt. Activism without self-care becomes a candle that burns too brightly, only to fade too soon. Healing keeps the flame alive. True resistance, then, is not just holding a sign in the street, but holding ourselves with compassion when the weight of the world feels unbearable. It is remembering that a thriving mind is as essential to change as a thriving forest. Greta's message is clear. If we want a sustainable planet, we must build a sustainable inner world. Every breath taken in mindfulness, every boundary set against burnout, every act of rest is a political statement. The fight for Earth begins within, and healing is our most underestimated weapon. Asterisk, the cost of carrying the world carrying. The weight of the planet is not just a metaphor, it is a lived reality for many activists. For Greta, every speech, every march, every confrontation with political leaders carries an invisible toll. The cameras capture her words, but not the quiet nights when anxiety threatens to suffocate her, or when the enormity of the crisis seems to eclipse all hope. This is the hidden cost of leadership in a collapsing world. It is the heaviness of knowing the facts, of understanding the stakes, and of refusing to look away when everyone else prefers distraction. It is the emotional tax of caring too much in a culture that rewards apathy to sustain such a fight. Greta has had to navigate the fine line between dedication and self-destruction. She has spoken openly about the strain on her mental health, not as a weakness, but as a reality that must be faced if change is to be sustained. Her honesty forces us to confront a truth we often avoid. Activism is not a sprint. It is a marathon run through storms, uphill against the wind. And without acknowledging the mental toll, the most passionate voices will be lost to burnout long before their work is done. The health of the movement is tied to the health of its people. There is a paradox here. The more we care, the more vulnerable we become. Yet it is that very vulnerability that makes our care authentic and powerful. Greta's journey embodies this paradox. She has learned that to carry the world, one must also be willing to put it down for a moment, to breathe, to heal, and then to pick it back up again with renewed strength. This rhythm of resistance and rest is not a compromise, it is a necessity. Without it, even the fiercest fire will burn out before it can ignite real change. Turning pain into power for Greta, pain has never been the end point, it is the forge. Every moment of despair becomes fuel. Every insult from critics becomes steel in her resolve. She transforms personal anguish into a force capable of moving millions. This alchemy is not magic, but choice. The choice to turn inward struggles into outward momentum. She speaks not as someone untouched by suffering, but as someone who has stood in the fire and decided to emerge with purpose. This transformation is why her words resonate beyond politics, reaching into the deepest chambers of our shared humanity. Her example reminds us that mental resilience is not the absence of fear or exhaustion. It is the art of walking forward despite them. Each march she leads, each strike she joins, is a lesson in persistence. It says, "You do not need to be unbreakable to change the world. You only need to refuse to remain broken." Journey, we see a mirror of our own potential, the ability to channel frustration into creativity, grief into solidarity, and uncertainty into action. The bridge between individual healing and collective healing is built plank by plank, choice by choice. Greta's voice rises not just for the climate, but for the soul of humanity. She calls us to protect the Earth not as an abstract cause, but as an act of self-preservation, because the planet's healing is inseparable from our own. This is why her speeches pierce the heart. They are not about them or us, but about all of us together, breathing the same air, drinking the same water, standing on the same fragile ground. In her defiance, we find hope. Where in her vulnerability, we find strength. And in her relentless belief, we are reminded that change is not only possible, it is inevitable if we dare to carry it. Asterisk, the moment the world stopped to listen, the air was thick with anticipation. Cameras clicked, whispers faded, and a rare silence settled over the room. Greta stood there, small in stature, yet commanding the space as if she had pulled the axis of the world into that very moment. Her eyes carried the weight of glaciers, melting and forests burning, yet they also held a spark, a stubborn ember of hope. As she began to speak, her voice cut through the stillness, not loud but piercing, each word an arrow. She wasn't just delivering a speech. She was handing humanity a mirror, daring us to look. She spoke of rising seas and vanishing species, but also of the inner landscapes we've neglected, the mental and emotional ecosystems we've allowed to erode. You cannot heal the earth, she said, without healing yourselves. It was a sentence that hung in the air like a slow-moving comet, burning through layers of denial. Politicians shifted uncomfortably.
Activists
Nodded with tears in their eyes. Even skeptics found themselves unable to look away. This wasn't just climate rhetoric. It was a soul-level awakening wrapped in the urgency of science. In that moment, it didn't matter where you were from, what language you spoke, or what politics you held. Her message sliced through all of it, like light through a cracked window. The world seemed to pause, suspended in the gravity of truth. It was not the kind of speech that ends when the applause fades. It was the kind that plants seeds in people's minds, seeds that sprout years later in unexpected places. Greta had not just asked for change, she had ignited it, and once lit, such flames are almost impossible to put out. Asterisk the echo that never fades when a voice carries the weight of truth. It does not fade into silence once the crowd disperses. Greta's words rippled through the air like waves, touching shores far beyond that moment. The echoes settled in hearts and minds, stirring dormant awareness and inspiring new questions. Like seeds cast upon fertile soil, her message began to grow in quiet conversations. In classrooms, in protest lines, and even in lonely moments of doubt. The power of her speech was not in its immediacy, but in its persistence, challenging complacency long after the spotlight moved on. This echo is both a comfort and a challenge. It reminds us that change is rarely sudden, but a slow, steady, unfolding, much like nature itself. Just as a single drop creates ripples that widen, so can one voice ignite movements that reshape societies. Greta's speech became a current, pulling in others who felt lost or powerless, giving them direction and strength. The emotional charge embedded in her words acts like a magnet, drawing collective energy toward healing and action. It proves that mental resilience and environmental activism are entwined, each fueling the other in an endless dance. And so the echo continues, traveling through time and space, inviting us all to listen closely, not only to the urgency of climate change, but to the quiet whispers of our own minds. Calls for an awakening that is both external and internal, reminding us that the path to planetary healing is through mental healing. Greta's speech is a beacon, a pulse that beats, within movements and individuals alike. The challenge now is to nurture this echo, to transform it into sustained waves of change, both for the planet we inhabit and the minds that envision its future. Collective action rooted in inner strength. True change does not come from isolated acts, but from collective movements grounded in shared purpose and inner resilience. Greta's speech urges us to recognize that sustainability is not just a goal, it is a practice rooted in mental strength. When individuals cultivate emotional balance, they become more effective agents of change, capable of enduring setbacks and inspiring others. This inner strength becomes a foundation upon which communities build, creating ripples of hope that extend beyond borders and generations. The intertwining of mental health and environmental activism creates a powerful synergy. Activists who prioritize their well-being bring clarity, compassion, and creativity to the movement. Greta's message is a reminder that burning out weakens the cause, but nurturing ourselves empowers it. The planet's future depends on our ability to sustain not only ecosystems, but also the ecosystems of our mind spaces where hope, courage, and vision can flourish despite adversity. As we unite to confront the climate crisis, we must also unite in care for ourselves and each other. The resilience Greta embodies teaches us that sustainable activism is holistic. It embraces rest as revolutionary and healing as resistance. Together, mental and planetary health become inseparable threads in the fabric of global change. Only by weaving these threads can we create a future where both the Earth and its inhabitants thrive in harmony, resilience, and hope. The shared responsibility of healing the planet, and healing our minds is not the task of a single person, but a shared responsibility that connects us all. Greta's speech echoes a call for collective stewardship, a recognition that the health of the Earth is intricately linked to the well-being of humanity. It is a reminder that no one is exempt from this duty, and every action, no matter how small, carries weight. This interconnectedness demands that we move beyond isolation, forging bonds that strengthen both individual and communal resilience. In embracing this responsibility, we're invited to rethink our relationships with the environment, with each other, and with ourselves. Greta's message underscores the importance of empathy, urging us to listen deeply and act with intention. The mental health of a community reflects the health of its environment. When one suffers, so does the other. Together, we must cultivate spaces that honor vulnerability, encourage healing, and inspire sustained engagement. This collective care is the soil from which transformative change grows. Hope is not naive optimism, but a conscious choice to believe in the possibility of renewal. Greta's journey teaches us that hope thrives in action and reflection, in persistence and rest. It is this hope that binds generations, a legacy passed from those who marched before to those who will continue the fight. The call for mental and planetary healing is a call for unity, courage, and unwavering commitment. By answering it, we become co-creators of a future where both people and planet can flourish. Asterisk. Youth as the beacon of change, Greta Thunberg symbolizes. A generation that refuses to inherit a broken world without a fight. Her voice ignites the fire in countless young people who see their futures intertwined with the fate of the planet. This youth-driven movement carries not only the urgency of climate action, but also the weight of mental health struggles that come with living in uncertain times. For many, activism becomes a path toward healing, a way to reclaim agency in the face of despair. Greta's example shows that youthful passion, when nurtured with care, can be a wellspring of resilience and hope. The mental and emotional challenges faced by young activists are profound. They confront climate anxiety, burnout, and isolation, yet continue to show remarkable strength. Greta's transparency about her own mental health journey breaks stigma and fosters solidarity, encouraging others to seek support. This openness transforms activism from a solitary battle into a shared experience. The connection between inner healing and external action becomes a foundation, upon which young people build sustainable movements. Movements that honor both the planet's needs and their own well-being. As youth lead the charge toward a sustainable world, their mental health must remain a priority. Greta's speech serves as both a rallying cry and a compassionate reminder that the fight for climate justice is inseparable from the fight for mental health awareness. Investing in mental wellness resources, community support, and self-care practices strengthens the movement's backbone. Collective healing as a catalyst for change. True transformation arises when individual healing merges with collective action. Greta's speech emphasizes that the fight for the planet is inseparable from the fight for our own mental wellness. When communities come together, sharing their fears, hopes, and strategies, they form a resilient network that can weather political storms and social setbacks. It is collective healing fuels movements with authenticity and endurance, creating ripples that extend far beyond any single protest or speech. It is through this shared journey that sustainable change becomes possible. Collective healing demands spaces where dialogue and vulnerability are encouraged. It means embracing discomfort and uncertainty as part of growth while supporting each other's mental health. Greta's call for planetary healing invites us to envision communities that mirror the ecosystems we strive to protect, interconnected, balanced, and thriving. In these spaces, mental health is prioritized not as an afterthought, but as a pillar of resistance and renewal. Here, the health of the mind is as vital as the health of the soil beneath our feet. As the movement gains momentum, this intertwining of mental and environmental care becomes a beacon for others. It offers a model of activism that is sustainable, not just in policy, but in practice. Greta's leadership embodies this balance, a fierce commitment to change paired with the wisdom to nurture herself and her community. Her example challenges us to rethink what it means to fight for the future, reminding us that caring for our inner worlds is the most radical act of all. Asterisk the legacy of intergenerational responsibility. Greta Thunberg's movement is not just about today, it is a message for generations to come. Her speech carries the weight of intergenerational responsibility, urging us to think beyond immediate gains and consider the long-term health of both the planet and our minds. This legacy calls for sustainable habits that protect the Earth's resources while nurturing mental well-being across all ages. By advocating for systemic change, Greta inspires young and old alike to recognize their roles as caretakers of a fragile world and the shared emotional ecosystems within it. The future Greta envisions is one where communities value mental health as much as environmental health, understanding that one cannot exist without the other. This vision challenges societal norms that often separate personal well-being from collective survival. Through her activism, she bridges this divide, making it clear that healing the planet involves healing ourselves, our traumas, anxieties, and hopes. Greta's legacy encourages a shift in consciousness, one where empathy, resilience, and care form the foundation of our relationship with nature and each other. This intergenerational responsibility is a call to action for all of us, to become stewards not only of the earth, but of the minds that will shape its future. Greta's speech serves as a reminder that the health of our planet is deeply entwined with the health of its inhabitants, past, present, and future. By embracing this holistic perspective, we honor the struggles of today while planting seeds of healing for tomorrow. In this shared journey, every act of care, every moment of reflection becomes part of a larger, enduring commitment to a sustainable and mentally healthy world. Asterisk. The unfolding path of hope, the journey, Greta Thunberg invites us on, is not linear nor easy. It is a path marked by setbacks, revelations, and moments of quiet courage. But it is also a path illuminated by hope, a hope that grows stronger as more of us answer the call to heal both our minds and our planet. Her speech serves as a beacon, reminding us that while the challenges are immense, so is our capacity for resilience. The intertwining of mental health and sustainability is not a burden but a source of strength that can guide us through the darkest storms, each step taken toward awareness, each moment of mindfulness, and every act of environmental care contribute to a larger movement of healing. Greta's voice encourages us to embrace this dual journey with compassion for the earth and for ourselves. This compassionate activism builds bridges between communities and generations, fostering a shared vision of a world where both nature and humanity thrive, calls for patience, persistence, and the willingness to hold space for complexity and contradiction as we move forward. Let Greta's speech echo within us as a continuous reminder. Healing is both a personal and collective revolution. The fight for mental and planetary health is intertwined, demanding that we nurture ourselves as fiercely as we nurture the earth. In this unfolding path of hope, every voice matters, every choice counts, and every act of care becomes a spark that fuels the fires of global change. Together, we carry the future, fragile yet full of promise. Asterisk, in the quiet whisper of the trees. In the rising tides and gentle breeze lies a story of healing, deep and true, a call from the earth, reaching. You dot the mind and planet bound as one, underneath the same shining sun. Strength blooms where compassion grows, in the hearts of those who chose to face the storm with open eyes, to hear the earth's anguished cries. And though the road is long and steep, the seeds we plant we vow to keep. With every breath, with every stand, together we heal, hand in hand. Greta's fight, a spark, a flame, calling us all to join the game. Asterisk, if Greta's message moved you, don't let it stop here. Share this video to spread the call for mental and planetary healing. Comment below, how are you nurturing your mind in the earth today? Join the conversation, inspire others, and be part of the movement that unites inner strength with global change. Together we can turn hope into action